Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to ioRadio with your host, Adam Smith. Today on the show, I have Yvonne Taylor, who is one of the co-founders of the Seneca Lake Guardian, which is an environmental activist organization located in New York State. She's going to talk with us about something that she and her people have been fighting. She's also associated with the International Coalition Against Crypto Mining. That's right. They are squaring off against power plants that are being repurposed to mine crypto. And no, these are not green power plants. These are fossil fuel plants, many of whom should not be running and have not been running, but are being restarted to power crypto mining. And we're going to talk with Yvonne. But before we get to that, let's show this story that was from CBS Saturday Morning, which kind of talks a little bit about some of the issues that were relating to these organizations.
When it first popped on the scene, cryptocurrency was considered a risky alternative investment, and many say that hasn't changed. Something that has, its value. 6 years ago, on this very day, you could buy a single Bitcoin for around $244. But today, it is over $55,000. Not everyone buys Bitcoin, but many are engaged in the high-stakes effort to create them through a mind-bending process of electronic mining. And that's where virtual currency may create real-world concerns for the environment. CBS News meteorologist and climate specialist Jeff Biradelli has the story.
Good morning. The opportunity to make big money is now attracting huge investments to industrial-scale Bitcoin mining, with thousands of supercomputer mining machines and enormous energy demand. So much energy that some companies are using power plants to fuel their operations. But critics fear that may have significant environmental consequences.
It's stunning. You could just be driving along the highway and see a magnificent waterfall. It's spectacular here.
Yvonne Taylor's family has lived along the shores of Seneca Lake for 7 generations, an idyllic spot nestled in New York's picturesque Finger Lakes region.
We've got waterfalls, gorges, water to swim in, fresh water to drink, an abundance of agriculture, wine, tourism. It's a piece of heaven right here.
But now she says her piece of heaven is threatened. Taylor is a leader of Seneca Lake Guardian, an environmental watchdog, engaged in a battle over this once shuttered power plant. The plant, named Greenwich Generation, lay dormant for more than 5 years. It was converted from coal to natural gas and fired back up in 2017 by a private investment firm with the intent to supply power to the grid. Now, in addition to supplying power, the company has an industrial-scale Bitcoin mining business on the property, an operation that's been growing. Recently, the number of mining machines has doubled from around 7,000 to over 15,000. According to an SEC filing by Greenwich Generation, in March, the plant powered 19 megawatts of mining capacity. The document shows they expect that to more than quadruple by the end of 2022. Now, producing power requires millions of gallons of water to be drawn from the lake to help cool the process. That water is then permitted to be sent back into Seneca Lake, measurably warmer than it was when it came in. And some residents worry the potentially warmer water may disturb the balance of the ecosystem.
I feel like we are stewards of the land. Our roots run deep here.
Tina Hazlitt's family has owned this farm on Seneca Lake since 1852. There's no evidence the warm water outflow is causing environmental damage now, but she fears for the future.
What Greenwich is doing threatens our lake, it threatens our water, and for me, that threatens my grandchildren.
But Greenwich disagrees. In a series of emails with CBS News, a Greenwich spokesperson says the town has approved of the company's site plan. Greenwich is in full compliance with all of its permits, and there's no evidence of environmental harm. But Hazlitt says, given Greenwich's plan to grow their Bitcoin business, more study is crucial.
We need to throw up the red flags and say, slow down, let's investigate this. Let's look into what could really happen to our water, happen to our air, as a result of the growth of Bitcoin mining.
But why does Bitcoin mining require so much energy that it pays to own a power plant? Because every Bitcoin transaction activates thousands of supercomputing mining machines, all competing against each other to solve puzzling mathematical problems, each vying to be the first to validate that transaction and in return win new Bitcoin. More machines and cheaper power means more profit. So for power plants not operating at full capacity, mining can be an attractive new revenue stream.
But the impacts aren't isolated to the Finger Lakes region. Emissions from the burning of natural gas contribute to climate change, and advocates are concerned the floodgates are about to open back up shuttered power plants across the nation. Outside of the state of New York, there are many, many more of these plants.
Hundreds.
And we met former Cornell University professor and natural gas expert Tony Ingraffia just a Finger Lake away, surrounded by the sounds of the university's famous clock tower.
There are 2 other plants that are now targeted in New York State to quickly open up.
He says using power plants to mine Bitcoin raises an ethical concern because of emissions of carbon dioxide and methane leakage, which is common along the supply chain leading to the plant.
Methane is, over the short term, 100 times more potent than CO2.
The UN says the best lever we have to meet our Paris goals is to reduce methane emissions now.
Firing up Bitcoin mining across the country for private enterprise without regard to social good is a really bad thing to be doing. We're at the very, very leading edge of this phenomenon of cryptocurrency mining by burning natural gas. It's going to get worse.
It's a trend that is ramping up. Bitcoin miners are making deals to utilize or even purchase power plants in Western New York, Montana, and Pennsylvania, just to name a few. And critics say the Bitcoin industry's carbon emissions are already immense, larger than the total emissions of Sweden and Switzerland combined. In fact, a recent study found that Bitcoin mining alone has the potential to catapult us past the warming targets set by the Paris Agreement.
If you look at all the energy consumption of Google, Amazon, Facebook combined, this is more energy than all of them.
Anna Kellis is talking about Bitcoin mining. She's a New York State Assembly member who says the industry used to be lucrative for the little guy. Now it's tougher to compete.
So mining Bitcoin has become an economy of scale.
Yes, absolutely. You need to have as many computers as possible, and you need those computers online every single second of every single day.
She worries using power plants for industrial scale mining will cause an escalation of emissions that may undermine New York's ambitious climate goals. So she's proposing a moratorium on this type of operation.
If they can work their way through all the regulations in New York State, which has some of the highest regulations in the country, it really sets a precedent.
Seneca Lake is under attack!
Together, Kellis and concerned residents like Yvonne Taylor
We are Anytown, USA, and this could happen in any community.
are hoping to get ahead of this burgeoning Bitcoin phenomenon before they fear it gets out of control.
We have to nip this in the bud, or else everything else we're doing to fight climate change will be undermined.
Greenwich told CBS News they have purchased carbon credits to offset their CO2 emissions from the plant. Now, their 5-year air permit is up for renewal now. In an August letter to New York's Department of Environmental Conservation, Greenwich said that it is in compliance with New York's greenhouse gas emissions targets established by the new climate law. New York's DEC says Greenwich's application has not yet demonstrated compliance with those requirements. DEC has not made a final determination on the permit. Public hearings are planned, and the DEC is accepting public comments on the renewal through October 22nd. And they've asked for more information from Greenwich. As for cryptocurrency's carbon footprint, there may be a way to significantly reduce emissions. The second largest cryptocurrency, Ethereum, just announced it's changing the way that they verify transactions. They say this will reduce emissions by over 99%.
A lot to think about, Jeff. Thank
For
you
sure.
very much.
Welcome, Yvonne. Is that the proper way to pronounce your name?
Yes.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your organization?
Okay. Well, I do not consider myself an environmentalist or an activist, or I never did, until I started building my year-round home on land that's been in my family for generations, and learned of a very multi-billion-dollar predatory corporation that was coming in that was going to exploit our clean air and our clean water for private gain.
and got involved in the decision to either just abandon my dream to live on my family land, or stand up and fight against this corporation. I chose to stand and fight. After an 8-year battle, we won. And through that course of 8 years, we learned an incredible amount along the way and decided that our work was far from done. We formed Seneca Lake Guardian in 2017, I think. So overall, we've got close to 15 years of experience in taking head-on predatory corporations that are impacting the clean air and clean water in the Finger Lakes region of upstate New York. It is a beautiful, most of the time when people think of New York State, they think of New York City. This is not that. This is a beautiful, bucolic region of rolling hills, freshwater, waterfalls, wineries, world-class wineries. We bring in $3 billion into New York State's economy every year through agriculture and tourism. And this region supports 60,000 jobs, all of which depend on clean air and clean water for survival.
So, as I understand it, you formed this organization, Seneca Lake Guardian, but you were successful in your advocacy before that, just as an individual?
Yes. Well, we formed a single issue organization called Gas Free Seneca back in 2011. I fought this oil and gas corporation for 8 years, won, found out about a garbage incinerator, fought that for 2 years and won. And then found out about this Greenwich Bitcoin mining facility on the shores of Seneca Lake, and are continuing to fight that.
And this is just a tiny little organization, but you managed to actually have a pretty big impact, huh?
Yes. I am kind of amazed to say that through our efforts, we remain victorious. We have yet to lose a battle. And we're gonna try and keep that track record. And what we have done is we've taken local issues that are impacting our community, turned it into a regional issue, then from there turned it into a statewide issue by helping educate and inform people across the New York State about how this is not just an isolated incident and could also be, have statewide ramifications, and collaborated with statewide organizations. And then from there, if an issue is big enough, it becomes a national campaign.
So what do you have to say to people who just feel like they're powerless to going up against these powerful institutions?
That's a great question. I was told that repeatedly as we took on our first battle. Who are you? Who do you think you are? There's no way you're going to win. And I'm here as living proof to say they were wrong. You can, if you're passionate enough about an issue, take it on, collaborate with others, build a coalition, fight something, and win.
So one of the focal points of all of this conflict is this old power plant that's in your region, right? Can you tell us a little bit about that? When was it built? How was it started? When was it retired? And then when was it kind of brought back online?
Sure. So on the shores of Seneca Lake, there was a coal-fired burning power plant that was a big polluter in the area, was determined not to be needed to provide power to the grid, and therefore shut down. Everybody was elated to hear that, and for several years was producing zero emissions as it sat there decommissioned. I'm not sure exactly when the date is that they were purchased by a company called Atlas Holdings and resurrected, not burning coal anymore, but transitioning to burning fracked gas or fossil fuel, right? And then they opened with the promise that they were only going to be serving as what they called a peaker plant to provide power to the public in times of high demand and only operate about 6% of the year.
Did that actually happen? Were they doing that?
For a little bit of time, yes, maybe 6 months to a year. Then they found that to be unprofitable and started adding in these Bitcoin mining machines. Slowly but surely, this thing started operating now 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, emitting enormous amounts of greenhouse gas emissions. And again, it became now not a peaker plant as they had originally promised, but a full-time Bitcoin mining facility.
And it's interesting, Bitcoin people are very apt to say that Bitcoin promotes renewable energy, but that's certainly not the situation in this case, right?
It is certainly not the situation in this case. What a brilliant idea. Buy your own power plant, provide your own power for, your 32,000 Bitcoin machines. So yeah, they're not using any renewables at all in this case.
And so they're running right now with this thing? And how successful are you? What's your angle on this front to try to deal with that?
Okay, so as I mentioned, going from a local issue to a regional and then therefore a statewide issue, we identified 49 other decommissioned or underutilized fossil fuel burning power plants in the state of New York that could use the Greenwich model and start incorporating Bitcoin machines into the power plants. We collaborated with statewide organizations to help them understand how this would totally undermine the climate law and the climate goals in New York State. Mm-hmm. And therefore, it became a statewide initiative, and Greenwich became the test case for what not to do. So we were fighting it on both a local and a statewide level. In New York State, we were able to get a 2-year moratorium on the use of fossil fuel burning power plants for cryptocurrency mining while an environmental impact study was being completed. And at the same time, the Department of Environmental Conservation, which was charged with renewing what they call a Title V air permit, denied that permit to the Greenwich plant on the grounds that it did violate New York State's climate law. The Greenwich facility has been unfortunately able to find legal loopholes to keep appealing that decision. That decision has been upheld not once, not twice, but 3 times now in a court of law. And yet they don't like the answer. So they, like a petulant child, continue to stomp their feet and try to find somebody else who will give them a different answer in the court of law. Mm-hmm. And in turn, we continue to fight them every step of the way. And we do feel that ultimately we will prevail and get them shut down.
Do you know if there's other similar situations in other states where there are fossil fuel plants that have been reactivated that are doing Bitcoin mining?
I'm sure there are, and if there aren't, there will be under the new administration, because this new administration has promised to make the United States the Bitcoin capital of the world by drilling and burning more fossil fuels.
So can you tell us what specifically are the problems with the power plant and how it impacts your area?
Yes. For one thing, as I mentioned, we have 60,000 jobs that all rely on clean air and clean water for survival. We have grape growers who have spent generations building what we call the Finger Lakes brand and producing world-class wine. These grapes, are grown in a very sensitive climate in the Finger Lakes, and the greenhouse gas emissions that this facility is spewing out in increasing numbers. I believe the last report we got, they were spewing out over 818 million pounds of CO2 equivalents into the atmosphere per year. It's probably higher than that now. That is all impacting the ability to grow grapes. It's causing new challenges for the farmers who are having to face, new pests, warmer nights that cause more mildew on the grapes. So it's negatively impacting our driving economic engine in the region, which is agriculture and tourism. The facility, by the way, was granted the exact same permitting conditions that the old coal-fired power plant had been given back in the 50s when it was first built. And this predates the Clean Water Act by the EPA, by the way. And so it gives this facility the right to withdraw 139 million gallons of our lake water every single day and then dump it back into our lake hot at temperatures up to 108 degrees Fahrenheit. This is a cold glacial formed freshwater lake that also serves as a drinking water resource for over 100,000 people. And we are having a very difficult time with what we're calling harmful algal blooms in the Finger Lakes and especially on Seneca Lake. These harmful algal blooms are a cyanobacteria. It's a neurotoxin.
Right.
That is harmful both to humans and animals. If your dog swims in the lake when there's a harmful algal bloom, it'll die.
Well, that's not good.
Yeah, it's horrible, right? And
yeah, I think they have that in the Gulf of Mexico. Now, some people want to call it another name where they call it dead zones, where there's these algae blooms that suck all the oxygen out of the water, right? And cause fish kills too.
Absolutely. So, it's harmful for aquatic life. It's harmful for humans. It's harmful for pets and animals, wildlife. And, for people like me, I mean, there are many people around that lake, like me, who are, my house that I finally did build on my family land has a pipe that goes right out of the house, down the hill, into the lake. That's my water. And if there is a harmful algal bloom in front of my lake water or my water intake, I can't run water. I can't flush the toilet. I can't cook. I can't bathe. I can't clean anything. I can't certainly give fresh water to my animals because this stuff is extremely costly and difficult to remove once it's in your system. And we are experiencing record-breaking harmful algal blooms in the Finger Lakes region. There are many different causes of harmful algal blooms, but one of them is increasing warm water temperatures. And we know discharging temperatures, 134 million gallons of hot water into Seneca Lake a day is not helping that problem, particularly in the immediate area where the facility is located. And lots of people get their drink of water from there.
I gotcha. So I understand another thing you fought against is to protect nearby national forests against drilling for fossil fuels. Have these efforts been successful, and how do you fight something like that? And has the current administration reversed any of that progress?
No, now you're going way back. This was before we formed any organization at all, but we live near the Finger Lakes National Forest. It's 16,000 acres of beautiful natural scenery, trails that you can hike on, cross-country ski on, beautiful ponds and waterfalls. And there was a proposal to start drilling for gas in the Finger Lakes National Forest. And I was one of the very, very many people that said, hell no, stay away from our beautiful resource. You're not going to drill on our land. Little did I know at that time that what they were proposing was a new practice called hydraulic fracturing. And one of the arguments that they were saying was, well, listen, we're not gonna disturb the area residents because we're gonna drill and then we're gonna go sideways into the forest and suck the gas out that way, which became then another fight. So, long story short, we won. They're not drilling in the Finger Lakes National Forest, but then we understood more about the fact that high volume hydraulic fracturing, or fracking as it's called, was coming full bore into New York State and my region.
Mm-hmm.
And we were instrumental in fighting that as well. And we still have today a ban on fracking in New York State, thanks to those efforts. So yeah, I guess this has been going on for quite a while.
So when you and the reason why I'm asking you about this is because I had a similar situation actually happen to me too. I own some property in a rural area that borders the national forest, and all of a sudden, there were lots of trucks rolling up and down my road. Lots of industrial trucks, and it's a very rural area. And I'm like, what's going on? I couldn't get an answer from anybody. And then they, it was a dirt road, and then they paved the road in front of my house. And I'm thinking, oh, this is nice, Well, the reason they paved the road was so that they could more quietly kind of just bring all of this heavy equipment in. So I followed all this equipment, and it went into the national forest, and there was this little area that they had just cleared, and they had created a retention reservoir, and they had wires and cables that were running through the forest from one location to another. Nobody said anything to me about what it was. There was no notification to the residents that this was going on. And I had to do some research, and I found out that there was a permit issued for a fracked well. And I guess this might have been maybe an experimental one, but they set it up in the middle of the night. They worked mostly late at night when everybody was asleep. And I could feel the ground, I could feel weird vibrations through the ground of something that was going on. And in the daytime, they were gone. In the nighttime, they would light this thing up and do stuff. And then all of a sudden, they packed it all up and left. Now, I don't know if that means they didn't find what they were looking for or what, but I wouldn't have known about this if I hadn't gotten online and found some permits in some public database that showed this was going on. So there's no... is that the same situation with y'all? Is there no facility to notify the residents that something industrial might be happening in their area?
Unfortunately, yes. And that's exactly how these predatory corporations want it, because they want to be able to sneak in under the radar before anybody gets wind of what they're doing, and, already be established before anybody can raise concerns. And then it's much, much harder once they've already been granted permits to try and turn that back and stop them. So that is how they operate. Yeah.
So what's the demographics of the people in your region? Do they have a lot of Republicans up there who are unaware of how much of a threat the current administration may be to the environment? Do you have any insight into how they reconcile their political decisions?
Boy, yeah. It is, New York State in general is a blue state. However, the area that I'm in is primarily red. It is changing as new people come into the area. It's becoming a little bit bluer, but our state senator, our state representative in Congress, first of all, our state senator is Senator Kirsten Gillibrand. She, we thought, was environmentally conscious. She was kind of on our side in some other environmental issues. We had a very good relationship with her. We reached out to her when we found out about the Greenwich facility and said, boy, this is a big concern. You need to come visit with us. We want to share with you what our concerns are and how this is impacting the Finger Lakes region. She's
turned into a crypto bro, right?
She introduced the Genius Act. She helped co-sponsor the Genius Act, which would, give basically Elon Musk his own cryptocurrency. So she she completely abandoned her constituents, and now she's pro crypto all the way. She is the second highest recipient of crypto lobbying dollars in the country. So even though she is a Democrat, she is a complete turncoat when it comes to this.
Yeah, I get a lot of that. Like people say, both parties are supporting crypto, and if it weren't for just kind of isolated exceptions like her, I don't know if you can really say that about the Democrats. You can certainly say it about the Republicans, wouldn't you? Is that your contention too?
Yes, we are actually just shocked and stunned at Kirsten Gillibrand's decision to support crypto on this, and she refuses to talk to us to have any kind of responsible dialogue on the issue. So yeah, but I think, even in the red states, what we are seeing is once key decision makers understand the impacts on their state economically, as everyday individuals see their electric bills go sky high, they, even if they supported crypto in the beginning, as they learn more, they regret that decision, and they are working to protect their states against crypto as they learn more. And that is our goal at this point, is to help educate and inform, because at this point there's only 0.27% of Americans that are actually utilizing cryptocurrency. And we formed the National Coalition Against Cryptocurrency Mining to represent the rest of us who don't benefit from this industry, so that other people can understand the harms that it's causing to my community and others across the country.
Right. In much of the material that talks about the negative consequence of mining, and I saw this in that CBS report as well, I've seen activist groups also mention that there are other cryptocurrencies other than Bitcoin that don't use this proof of work that requires so much energy. So in one breath, they're talking about how crypto mining is bad, but then in the other breath, they're saying, but there's this other crypto that's not as bad. Do you feel that way? Do you feel like, everybody should use another crypto that just doesn't waste as much energy, and that's a little bit more acceptable as a reasonable alternative? Or do you feel like there's not anything socially valuable, redeeming about the entire industry?
If you talk to anybody who knows anything about cryptocurrency, their opinions are going to differ on this. And there are many reasons beyond the climate impacts, the impacts of noise, the cost to Americans as their electric bills rise, the intensive use of water, all of those environmental issues, and community issues. There are many reasons beyond that to say, crypto is being used for nefarious purposes. It doesn't really create any intrinsic value to us, and so therefore it shouldn't exist at all. Mm-hmm. So there is that side of things, and it depends on who you talk to, what side they're going to fall on there. But let's just say if we were to agree that crypto is necessary, then at the very least, it should be less energy intensive than Bitcoin, or what they call proof of work cryptocurrency mining, which is the highly energy intensive form. Because there is an alternative, and it's called proof of stake, which is a whole different model of cryptocurrency, right, that uses 99.9% less energy. We've got all of these industries all looking at, the way I look at it is, we're in the middle of a global climate crisis right now, right? Mm-hmm. To burn more fossil fuels and emit more greenhouse gases into the atmosphere to make fake money right now is literally insane. And people across the world are looking at ways to reduce energy consumption.
we're going away from incandescent bulbs to LED lights. We're all trying to use Energy Star appliances. There's a miles per gallon limit on vehicles, so you don't see a bunch of Humvees driving around anymore. But this industry thinks that they're somehow immune to this and that they can just keep burning fossil fuels, using up all of our precious green electrons that the public needs to use so that they're not relying on fossil fuels for their energy sources. They try to say that they're green by using green alternative energy. No, they're stealing those energy sources away from the public and causing the public to be more reliant on fossil fuels for their electricity. And so this is a horrible situation. And the only reason that the proof of work people, the Bitcoin folks, won't switch, which has been proven to be effective by Ethereum, right? Ethereum was proof of work. They transitioned to proof of stake. And now you can see they're using far less energy and they're using far less water, and they've managed to be successful. The only reason that the rest of the group is failing to do so is pure greed. And right now, if you're, it doesn't matter if you're blue or you're red or you're purple, that is just insane.
Right. I want to ask you a question that I basically ask everybody that comes on the show. A very simple question that seems to just not exist in mainstream media and in the crypto sphere, which is just something very simple. Can you think of one thing that blockchain technology does that is better than existing non-blockchain technology? So Bitcoin's been out now for 16 years, and everybody is talking about it as being revolutionary and disruptive. And in every other definition of revolutionary and disruptive technology that's ever been presented to the public and ended up being accepted, it's been able to answer this simple question of, what do you do that is better than what we're using already, right? Because there's no reason for anybody to change unless this new technology does something, not merely has a use case, but can do something better than what we're already using. It's a simple question I ask every person. Can you name one thing that Bitcoin or blockchain or Ethereum is better at than what we've already been using?
In all honesty, as you're asking me this question, I'm racking my brain and I cannot come up with a simple, I can't think of one thing that it has of value, in my opinion.
That's kind of general the consensus I get, except, criminals will certainly argue otherwise, that it allows them. And most of the arguments that when you hear about crypto and Bitcoin is like, I can send $10 million overseas in 10 seconds without anybody knowing. And I'm like, that doesn't sound like a legitimate legal thing to do.
Exactly.
If you need to send $10 million overseas really quickly, I have a feeling you're not doing something a lot of people would think would be appropriate. But even that is not actually really true, right? Because when you send crypto, you're not actually sending actual money, because there's so few places that accept crypto in return for anything that regular people need, that you still have to convert it, and then you run into all of the same roadblocks that you claim you're bypassing.
Yep, exactly.
So one of the things that frustrates me, and you're an environmentalist, so you're going at it from the environmental position. I'm a technologist. I'm going at it from the technology position of, all right, if you're trying to tell me this is the future, show me why it's the future. I find that I have a very, very hard time presenting my very evidence-based, cogent arguments against Bitcoin and getting any traction in the mainstream media. And it seems to me that maybe what you all are doing is you're trying to you've kind of altered your presentation, right? You won't come out and say all of crypto is a fraud, even though I think a simple argument like, if all Bitcoin Ethereum, and every crypto disappeared tomorrow, if it all went to zero, if it ceased to exist, if every computer operating at some kind of Bitcoin thing exploded or disappeared tomorrow, it wouldn't affect a single business or product or service that everyday people use. You know, when the housing market collapsed, it affected everybody's daily life. All of Bitcoin could disappear and it would just be Wednesday. You know, it would Thursday. It would be another day. It's not going to change the price of anything.
Yeah.
So I wonder why that discussion is just noticeably absent from any mainstream media. Do you guys think you have to have this softer approach where you're like, we're not saying all of crypto is bad. You guys could switch to Ethereum. But the truth is that Ethereum doesn't really do anything better either than Bitcoin. It wastes less energy. But at the end of the day, when your average person is like, well, why do I care? Why should I care about Bitcoin? Why should I care about Ethereum? Is this an intentional way that like you could not get coverage on CBS if you talked about the emperor is completely naked? Instead, you just have to say, well, this guy working for the emperor is naked.
So I think you raise, I'm so glad you asked this question, because as I alluded to earlier, we've had some measured success in New York State with getting a moratorium on crypto, with getting the Greenwich facility in my community's permit denied. But we realized that even if we're successful in New York State, these miners are so highly mobile that they will just pick up their machines and move to a more crypto-friendly state, right? And we've seen this happen. We have seen the crypto industry spread like a cancer across the United States, and harm communities all across the country. So we formed in 2021 the National Coalition Against Cryptocurrency Mining, and tried to seek out other impacted communities across the country and help them with resources, education, information, and just start collaborating nationwide on this issue. And the very, very concerning thing that we're finding is that the crypto industry is spending as much as the pharmaceutical industry, possibly as much as the fossil fuel industry, in lobbying dollars and campaign contributions to get pro-crypto people elected. In addition to that, they control the messaging in the media. So you can Google crypto on any given day of the week, and you'll get at least a dozen articles that crop up, and not a one of them talks about the impacts to local communities, the impacts on your electric bills, the impact on the grid instability, the impact on the climate, and the water intensive usage, and the e-waste that's created. Nothing is being shared with the public other than the pro-crypto view, and especially with our elected officials and decision makers, right? They're knocking on the doors of Washington with professional lobbyists every day. And the only thing our decision makers are getting is that information. And that is what the National Coalition Against Cryptocurrency Mining is set out to change. Our goal is to pierce that dominated information bubble that the crypto industry currently controls and let other people understand clearly what the harms are. You don't have to be an environmentalist to be opposed to having your electric bill go sky high because the crypto industry is sucking all the electricity out at reduced rates. We have information that the electricity costs for non-crypto mining Texans went up by $1.8 billion a year. And this is according to conservative estimates from consulting firm Wood Mackenzie. So, it doesn't matter if you're an environmentalist. If it's hitting your pocketbook, you should be concerned about this. And that is just one of the things that we are trying to scream at the top of our lungs and get the mainstream media to understand. And as a matter of fact, nobody really anticipated that this new administration was going to win the election. But when we were shocked waking up the day after the election day with the news, the National Coalition Against Cryptocurrency Mining quickly went into action, and we started a national public relations campaign to get the messaging out there for the rest of us who don't benefit from crypto at all, which is the majority of the American people.
Mm-hmm.
So we're working on that, and soon you should see some media come out that reveals more information on this.
So obviously you're up against a lot of big money, a lot of money that's being spent. You're also technically up against the entire fossil fuel industry, which is another just behemoth, right? Obviously money and power and influence are kind of like a mountain that you have to get over. Do you have any corporations, any money or power or influence on your side other than the people? I mean, the people tend to be the most important resource, but also the least effective in terms of, controlling the narrative in the media now. Do you have any allies to help with that?
We certainly, as average human beings, the majority of the National Coalition Against Cryptocurrency Mining consists of housewives, single moms, retired nurses. I'm a school teacher. I'm talking to you during my lunch period at school right now. So no, we don't have the dollars that the crypto industry has. We do now have probably over 20 national environmental organizations that support our work, including Earth Justice, Center for Biological Diversity, Food and Water Watch, the Sierra Club. I could go on, but the list is growing, and the number of people who are being impacted by this or are starting to wake up and see the harms that this is causing to everyday Americans continues to grow. And so, yes, we might be absolutely crazy trying to take on the fossil fuel industry, to take on this new administration that's promising to turn the U.S. into the Bitcoin capital of the world. I think right now we are currently in this country responsible for 46% of all global emissions for crypto mining. Yeah, we might be crazy, but we feel like we can't look ourselves in the mirror if we don't speak out and try to do something, because we're talking about global climate collapse if we allow this industry to continue growing as it is without any reins on it. So yeah,
Right.
it's a big challenge, but we just feel we absolutely must try.
Yeah, I've been trying to kind of figure out why crypto has become so popular despite it still largely being useless. And one of the things that occurred to me is that, for the last couple of decades, we've been trying to phase out fossil fuels for obvious reasons. And the fossil fuel industry has been trying to find any angle they can to continue to maintain relevance. And it seems to me that embracing crypto, which has such high energy requirements, is like throwing a bone to certain industries that have been on the way out, building more power plants, all forms of fossil fuel, because any source of cheap energy is going to be attractive to these miners. And it's interesting that they found this weird angle to get around. So you think you might be into crypto, but in reality, you're helping support the fossil fuel industry, fighting against the necessity of them becoming obsolete.
You hit the nail right on the head. Cryptocurrency mining and the fossil fuel industry are one and the same. They're synonymous. As the fossil fuel industry was finding itself becoming more and more obsolete, in its dying gasp, it is looking for ways to stay viable, and cryptocurrency is their little silver bullet as a way to continue to stay viable. That and plastics. But yeah.
So what do you want to say to people that are listening to this? The 7 people, or I don't know. What do you want to say to people that are listening, and how can they get involved? How do you inspire people these days that feel so disenfranchised and helpless?
That is a great question. We all, if we are sentient beings and don't have our heads in the sand right now, are feeling a little despair. And I'm here to say, you cannot despair. You have to find a way to bring hope into this world. And as the famous author and scientist Sandra Steingraber has said in the past, now is the time to pick up your instrument, whatever it may be, and play it with all of your might in the symphony of the world. Because if you don't, there won't be one left to fight for. So find your instrument, whatever that may be. If you are feeling hopeless, join us. We are here to commiserate, number one, but also give you hope and strength. We are a spreading, growing coalition of people from all walks of life and different skills and talents. And we know that there are others that have skills and talents that can lend their resources to this growing movement. And, I hope that will give people hope to know that you're not alone, that we are out here. We are here to provide you with resources and information and an understanding of what's at stake, so that you can join us and make a difference, because now is the time.
And I guess you would say that no matter where you are, chances are this may be affecting you and you don't even know about it, or there may be plans for it to affect you. And you're also saying that no matter who you are, there is some talent or value that you could add to the cause. So don't lose faith. Don't think there's nothing you can do. Every little thing, even a few extra moments of your time, can help make a difference.
100%. And you'll feel better by doing it. So whatever small amount of time you have, go to the National Coalition Against Cryptocurrency Mining website, fill out the membership form, get in touch with us, send us an email, ask questions. We're here, and we're here to give you hope.
And is there anything else that you want to say or you want people to know about what's going on?
I honestly can't think of anything other than to hit back on the point that every single American, whether they're cognizant of it or not, is being negatively impacted by this industry. So please take a moment to learn some more, and please get involved. And I want to thank you for covering this very important issue, Adam.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you guys. And I will be forwarding your material. And of course, I would encourage you, have you seen the documentary Blockchain Innovation or Illusion?
I have not, but I must put it on my list.
blockchainii.com. And it's a documentary that I've done that talks about what blockchain is and whether or not it lives up to any of its claims. So we can all work together trying to kind of help educate people about the industry. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
All right, Yvonne, thank you. Once again, I want to thank everybody for tuning in and listening, and be sure to subscribe to both the YouTube channel as well as our podcasts, which are on all the major platforms, iTunes, Amazon Music, Spotify. Just search for ioRadio. and you should be able to find it, or you go to the website, ioRadio.org. You'll find links to all of the podcast platforms and everything like that. And be sure to visit the YouTube channel. It's YouTube/American Scream Video. You can find a link to that at our main site, which is ioRadio.org, or the site for my documentary, which is called Blockchain Innovation or Illusion. That's at blockchainii.com. And again, thanks very much for your support. And if you would like to appear on the show, or you want to debate, or you want to discuss anything, email adam@ioRadio.org.